Hello, greetings everyone. Today is a very important day. I hope you can hear me. West Papua is commemorating 60 years since the independence. On this day in 1961, West Papua attained its independence from the Dutch. But then, moments after the Indonesian colonial regime invaded West Papua in 1963, and they took over West Papua, divided it into two provinces, and for the last 60 years, they have been butchering Papuan women and children. They've been burning houses for the indigenous people, and they have also been blocking indigenous people from expressing their right to be free and liberated from colonial oppression. I just played West Papua national anthem, and it shows that West Papuans have all symbols that any nation needs. They have distinct culture that is different from Indonesia. We are much closer to West Papuans than Indonesians are in terms of the culture, in terms of our history. If we look back at our history, we'll see that West Papuans left Africa thousands of years ago. And we must put to an end the ongoing systematic oppression of the indigenous people in West Papua. The United States of Africa strongly condemns the ongoing systematic human rights abuses. We call upon the United Nations to intervene in the deteriorating humanitarian crisis in West Papua. We have we have had so many people that have been displaced, some even living in Papua New Guinea, many living in the forests without any care, without any kind of the support, because Indonesia has blocked international organizations, humanitarian organizations from accessing West Papua, and even blocked international news agencies from entering West Papua so that they can get the real story from indigenous people. We have been having stories from the ground, and there's a lot that is going on to undermine indigenous people's culture, and at the same time to keep indigenous people oppressed. And as Indonesia continues extracting the indigenous people's resources, indigenous people are dying from hunger, dying from starvation. They don't have access to basic needs. And this is in spite of the fact that West Papua is home to the world's largest gold mine. It has a lot of copper reserves that Western companies are exploiting at the expense of the indigenous people. We have an American company called Freeport Moran, which is exploiting West Papua's gold at the expense of the indigenous people. And Australia has been funding Indonesian military so that they can continue carrying out this genocide. And then the same countries are the same that talking about human rights in Africa, yet they're the greatest violators of human rights. They support the terrorism acts being carried out by Indonesian government in West Papua. They've been supporting the genocide that is going on in West Papua for the last 60 years. United States is also a culprit because it has been training and arming Indonesian military as they carry out the genocide in West Papua. And the same nation claims to be the world leader in human rights, fighting for freedoms, yet when it comes to West Papua, the United States has been silent. And instead of helping indigenous people, instead of listening to the cries of the indigenous people, the United States has continued to provide Indonesia with more weapons so that they can kill the indigenous people, so that they can continue the blacks genocide that has been going on for the last 60 years. Enough is enough. West Papuans are tired of systematic oppression, and they've been reaching out, asking for solidarity, asking for help from Africa, so that they can get rid of this beast of colonialism. We know that the only reason why the United States is not interested in West Papua is because the only thing that it cares about is the natural resources that are available in West Papua. And it doesn't care about the welfare of the indigenous people. The same applies to Britain. It doesn't care about human rights when it comes to Black people in West Papua. Therefore, the African Union has to take a lead in ensuring that the voices of the indigenous people are heard, and that the indigenous people are given the right to determine their destiny and to determine their future. Because at the moment, their future is at stake. There is no future for West Papua as long as it continues suffering under Indonesian colonialism. In 21st century, we should not be seeing a black nation being colonized. And this is something that we need to see more of the Pan-African solidarity. We need to see the International Criminal Court investigating the crimes against humanity that Indonesia has perpetrated in West Papua. And each day they keep on arresting West Papuan spiritual leaders. They keep on restricting the freedoms of movement, freedom of worship, freedom to protest. So many have been arrested for raising their flag, for expressing their desires to be free. And this has to come to an end. The indigenous people have to be given the right to determine their destiny and to determine their future as a country. And it's about time that United Nations takes this West Papuan crisis seriously. Efira, you're saying, I want to be free. Hello, we are black. Yes, thank you so much. Joy Siren, you're saying thanks, brother and sister, and Global Pan-Africanism Network. I'll be happy to get the word out. Thank you, Patrick. We'll certainly get in touch. And thank you, everyone, for joining this stream. Let us keep on the solidarity with the indigenous people in West Papua and continue calling out Indonesia to end the terrorism activities against indigenous people and to give the indigenous people the right to determine their destiny, to respect the human rights of the indigenous people in West Papua. And we demand accountability from the Indonesian government to put to an end the systematic human rights abuses against Papuan children, Papuan women, Papuan young people, Papuan students, and to end this assault on the Papuan nation so that the indigenous people can get their God-given right to be a free nation. We say no more to colonialism in West Papua. Free West Papua, Papua Merdeka.